all doing okay? Yeah? I like a little bit of interaction, so excuse me. I have to remember that I'm not singing or doing a comedy act. You smile at me. How was your lunch? Nice? Yes. Did you have some of the desserts? Yeah, I don't know if small is good or not, I'm not so sure. Anyway, so yeah, as Helen says, I'm Martin Harrison. I lead the National Education Nature Park in the West Midlands. I'll touch on that more later, go into more detail, because that's what I do day to day. I'm here to talk about the whole programme and what DfE, Department for Education, offer in terms of climate. I'll go through what the offer is, why you should get involved, how to get involved, the free, so all of the ones I'm going to talk about, all the programmes I'm going to talk about are free. And then at the end, we're going to do an activity, time dependent, so you can start to think about your setting, your school, your multi-academy trust, very specifically about what I'm going to talk about. Please feel free to raise your hand and ask me any questions, or we'll have questions at the end. Does that sound okay? Again, apologies if I mess up with this, because the click is... I came in off now. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, I don't even know which one to press on. I don't know which one. I haven't got an Apple, so do that one. Cool, thank you. So, that is the strategy from Department for Education. So those 4 boxes are the main ones that we're looking at. And this has come mainly from 3 reports. So there is the Dasgupta report about the economics of biodiversity from 2021, which states that the UK is one of the most nature-depleted places in the world. So that's my sort of bag, which we'll go into. The Climate Change Committee, as we hopefully all know, we need to reduce carbon emissions. And then there is the Green Jobs Task Force that guesses that by 2030 there is going to be over 2 million green jobs in this country. A green job is sort of defined as anything that restores or preserves the environment and the planet. So that's what green jobs are. So we're very wide-ranging remit there in terms of those green jobs. So you as school leaders, the expectation from DfE, Department for Education, I'll use the word expectation, is that you have a climate action plan in place this year. If you notice on there it says academic year, there was musings about what did they mean 2025, but I don't think it's set in stone. So a climate action plan, and to have a nominated sustainability lead. So that's the ask from DfE. That climate action plan, as good as they are, is a vehicle to do stuff. I was just saying to one of Helen's colleagues outside, it's brilliant to have that plan, but we need you to action it so you are having some impact. So it's a vehicle to that action. I always think motivation is a really good thing to have in these things, not just professionally, but personally. So these are some stats, some numbers about why you should get involved as a person, individual, and as a professional. In the public sector, the majority of carbon emissions come from the education estate, 37%. So that suggests to me there's a huge opportunity for us in this room and in the whole conference to make a huge difference in terms of reducing that carbon emission, 37%, so a really big number there. Schools are about teaching and learning. 95% of teachers suggest it is extremely important to teach about climate and the environment. But unfortunately, the majority of them don't feel comfortable, ready to do that, which is a shame. So that links to that green skills as well for the children and for the professionals as well. And that second to last one, that 70%, which is a huge number, of children in this country don't feel ready for what's going to happen because of climate change. So we need them to feel comfortable, to be ready, to know they can do something and how to do that. And that's within the climate action plans, which we'll go onto in a moment. And that final one, which I'll probably repeat a lot, the most when I talk to people, when I email people, whatever I do, is that we are one of the most nature-depleted places in the world, which is really sad for me. My background is nature conservation. I worked at the Countryside Range in the Northwest for over 7 years, managed sites in Wales as well, and that's my passion, why I do what I do, so that's really sad. I'll go into a little bit more detail with some more stats, I like a stat, in terms of pollinators and UK species as well. So that's some motivation. I'm sure you've already got it because you're in this room and you're at this event anyway, but some extra ones if you need some numbers for people. So climate action plans, as I say, they are a vehicle to do something, put those things in place and actually get those actions and impact your settings, your schools, your multi-academy trusts. This originally wasn't put down as a ABCD, but it makes sense to put it as a ABCD. So this is what we expect, DfE expect of your settings. So adaptation and resilience, as Helen said, very much about overheating, flooding and lack of water. There's a really good tool that you can use. So I work for an organisation called Learning Through Landscapes, and we manage the Education Nature Park in the East and West Midlands. We do other stuff as well as an organisation, and there is a tool, an online free tool called the School Climate Audit. So you would go out yourself or one of your colleagues with some older children, if you're in primary, to see what you've got outside, looking at heat stress, water stress, wind stress and biodiversity. You give those a score and then it gives some options to how to improve that. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about the activity at the end. Biodiversity. So this is where I could talk a long time and I have to make sure I don't over talk about this. Is that it's really important. It's not just that awe and wonder. So when I was a kid, I went to a school that was nature reserve. I wasn't great at school, but I love going to the nature reserve. So that's why I've got that passion for it. So there is that awe and wonder. When your students, when your children, when your pupils and learners are getting involved in these climate action plans, they're going to have that proper emotional connection with nature. They're taking notice, they're learning those green skills, which is brilliant, physical and mental well-being, but also in terms of climate action. And I still will go on more about that when I mention the nature park. The third one sort of covers all of them really, because all those 4 pillars is climate education and green careers. So it could be identification of plants and animals. It could be working out the units of energy that's coming in from the sun, because you're adapting your outdoor space. And it could be linked to decarbonisation. So it's very much all of it, very much all of it. We had a session with one of our sister projects in June at Keele University, and that was the discussion that we had. However you want to do your climate action plan is down to you, and you don't, as much as we're asking you to put them in those boxes, you can overlap, you can put some in different ones, very much how you want to do it. And the DfE and themselves are not saying there's a definite way you do it, as long as you are looking at these 4 ones. Decarbonisation, this is the one that gets probably the most coverage, I would suggest, because it links to that reducing carbon emissions, and also there's money related to this. So there's a thing called, you might be aware of, called Switch Off Fortnight, which was last week, I think it ended on the 23rd, where schools are encouraged to turn stuff off, do this at home, turn off so it's not on your red light, and things like that, see the energy that you are saving, which will save carbon emissions as well. Just because that's finished a couple of weeks ago or last week doesn't mean you only have to do it then. You can do that at any point, but that's called Switch Off Fortnight. So they are the 4 pillars of the climate action plan. And like I say, DfE suggests, expects that every setting in this country should have a climate action plan this year. Really good that Department for Education have funded support programmes to support on all those 4 pillars of your climate action plan. Sustainable support for education, climate ambassadors and National Education Nature Park are all funded, commissioned by DfE. The one that isn't is Let's Go Zero, but we all work very closely together. So if you've had any dealings with one of us, you're probably aware of the rest of us. And they're all to support free to you to write and put action in place for your action plans. So I'll touch on each one of those in turn. And we'll start with, I'll say SSE, because when I say that I always struggle to say the whole thing. So this is what I call, and people might call, one-stop shop. So this is an online support system. So it is very much, I've been to the conference today, I'm into that, but I don't need to speak to. Go on the website when you've got time, when you're ready, and it covers everything. When the first time you go on that page, if you just put it into Google, you click on, it will say what is a climate action plan. It'll say what is a CAP actually. And then it's got links to all the other what we call sister projects. So that's a really good place to go to if you're unsure where to start. It's got climate action plan templates in there, it's got actions in there. So that is an online service. So that isn't someone or an organisation that will come in to speak to you or send you emails. There is contact details on there, but very much a one-stop shop to have a look as a starting point. So if that's the way you work and you want to have a look at a website, happy days, that's for you. Climate Ambassadors, so these are one of the 3 programmes that are funded by DfE, free support for every setting in the country. Similarly to ourselves at the Nature Park, these are in 9 regions. As Helen says, I manage it in the West Midlands. So the other regions are the East Midlands. I have to count on my fingers, I'll do this twice, because I struggle otherwise. The East Midlands, the West Midlands, the North West, East of England, North East, Yorkshire and Humber, London, South East and South West. So in terms of climate ambassadors, there is a regional hub manager at universities in each of those regions. What it's all about is professional environmental people, so that could be an ecologist, it could be a climate scientist, volunteer their time to become a climate ambassador, and then through the STEM learning platform, your school, your MAC can ask to get support from one of those. So if you were putting a pond in, then you might contact your regional hub manager of whichever university and whichever region you're in to say, we're putting a pond in, we don't know how to do it, we want to see what biodiversity there and after, have you got anyone? So they will link you up with a professional environmentalist, an ecologist in this case, to give you some support. What I will say with that is they need a decent lead-in time. So if you get in touch with your regional hub manager for your area, and you say, oh, I want someone because I'm thinking about putting solar panels on, cost all that. Give them, I would suggest, at least 6 weeks notice, because there's a lot of process in there to be able to find the right person, meets all with what you want to do, meets in with their timescales, because as I say, they are volunteers that have got a day job, as we all have. They will also support in terms of looking at and writing your climate action plans. Well, this is a little bit of crossover with Let's Go Zero, which I'll talk about in a second. Very good, very supportive, and a lot of knowledge there across the country, and all those different things that will help you with your climate action plan. And in terms of that, working together, we've been very supportive in terms of what we do in the Nature Park as well. So that's climate action plans. Climate ambassadors, apologies. Let's Go Zero. So as I say, these aren't funded by the Department for Education, but we work very closely with them. Similarly, in those 9 regions, there's 5 climate action advisors in the West Midlands, and they will support your school, as I said on there, your maths, to put together a climate action plan. So those 4 pillars of adaptation, biodiversity, green skills, and decarbonisation, they will suggest what you can put in those. So it could be like, say, that switch off fortnight for decarbonisation. We always suggest that the biodiversity ones to sign up and get involved in the Nature Park, which again I will tell you about in a second. And they will suggest, they will support you, they will see what your progress is about, they physically go into settings. I think you've got 8,000 sign-ups across the country currently. And again, that is a free service. It's not commissioned by the DfE, but it's a free service. And say we work with those closely as well. So again, a really good resource there, because they cover the whole gambit of that 4 pillars. And again, we work with them really closely. Across the 9 regions, similar with ourselves. Now, dare I say that this is the most important one? Dare I say? I just did. Yeah, so the National Education Nature Park, so we'll talk a little bit more about this because I've got more knowledge about this and this is what I do day to day. It is commissioned by DfE, and the main aim is to increase biodiversity in your school settings, outdoor space. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. And for your students, your learners, your young people to gain the knowledge, the skills and agency to act on climate change. How we do that, we've got a 5-step process. So you would sign up, you register for free. 5-step process is to getting to know your outdoor space. Again, I'll go back to this in a second. Identifying opportunities, so seeing how you can improve your outdoor space. Making decisions, decide what or not you're going to do in your outdoor space. Implementing those changes, and then recording those changes. So it's cyclical. So you've never done, any gamers, not a gamer, you've never completed Nature Park. It is cyclical, so you'll get new children, new students, new learners, you'll get new staff, new teachers, new colleagues. You continue to do it. Once you've signed up, if you haven't already, we ask you to map your boundaries. So as much as it is about nature conservation and biodiversity, it is about green skills in terms of digital skills. So our digital partner is an organisation called Esri, at the bottom there. They work with central government, they do a lot for our own survey, and they've written our digital skills, our mapping apps for us. So we ask you to map your boundary, and then we ask you to map what you've got on your site. Very much about involving your students, your learners, and your colleagues. We've found that some teachers, I'm not a teacher, but including myself, are not great at digital skills, so it's very much learning together. We're not suggesting that teachers know everything about biodiversity or digital skills. The lead partner, as I said, is the Natural History Museum. If you haven't been there, I suggest you go. It's ace. It's really good. It's not just dinosaurs. It's really good. It's really inspiring for young people and for adults as well. The reason I say that is because when you take part in the Nature Park, your students and yourselves and your colleagues will be doing proper science, proper community science, so which will inform and shape what nature conservation is done in this country in the future. So, my colleagues at Natural History Museum suggest there are 8 habitats, I'll have to use my fingers again, 8 habitats that you may find in your outdoor space in your schools and settings. So this is slightly different than the nature conservation surveys that you might be aware of that I know and I've used previously. So these are habitats that will fit in with what you've got. So we suggest you might have ground without plants, so that's the hard surfaces and astroturf and stuff like that. Trees, hedges and bushes, water, vertical surfaces, micro habitats, so that's things like bird and bat boxes. I always forget what to do after this one. Bless you. Grass and wildflowers, and grass and food. So they're the 8 habitats we suggest that you would have in your outdoor space. And how to map them using our digital skills. There is an activity for the young people, and then a flowchart so they can key out what that is. And then the adults, whoever's leading up, would map them on. So that's step 1, and then you can decide what to do, how to improve it for biodiversity. As a programme, we launched in October of 2023. And because we didn't have this knowledge of what was out there, so if you had all the space, outdoor space in education settings in England, it equates to twice the size of Birmingham. So one, there's a huge opportunity to make a difference in this country in terms of biodiversity, but we didn't know what was there. So we still, with new schools, we suggest improving grey spaces. So there's tarmac areas, walls and fences. Grey spaces generally have little or no biodiversity value, so we're not really going to affect anything, but ideally any sort of nature conservation countryside projects, you will find out what you've got first before you do anything. In terms of curriculum, all our resources are curriculum linked. Every phase of education really is to further education, and there are activities for each of those 5 steps that I mentioned. All free. There is further steps which I'll touch on. You might be a school or a college that's gone really through that already, and then we get into more species data as well, which you can do as well. And there is a webinar, which we'll mention now so I'll forget. We've just launched the new mapping tool that hasn't got a login wall. It's a GIS mapping system that anyone can get onto, and there is a free webinar next Wednesday from Multi-Academy Trust and Local Authorities, so if you want the details of that, I can send you that as well. I mentioned that in the webinar I did yesterday, and that just confused everyone when I said about 2 different mapping things, so let me know about that. So that's us, and it's free. Myself and my colleague Ellen here lead it in the West Midlands. I've got 2 colleagues in every one of those 9 regions. We offer support in terms of there's a lot of stuff on our website, how to sign up, how to start mapping. We do some delivery in schools as well to children and to adults. Everyone will do it differently across the regions, but we are here to help you to take part in the Nature Park. So please do give it a shout. We'll have some cards on the table. That email address goes to my colleague Yogi Ortegan at Natural History Museum, and they will point in the right direction of your regional team. So, cool. This is the bit that makes us start. So we're going to do an activity. Is that okay? Yes. Yes. So people are smiling. That's good. So what this is, I was saying to Helen and a colleague outside earlier, this is an activity that I use quite a lot. So from top end of primary into secondary and with adults as well. So head teachers, and it starts you to think about your space in terms of climate action plans and what you may be able to do in your school, in your setting. I'll ask you a question first. Anyone remember or still got with their children, grandchildren, top trumps? Yeah, see, it always works, always works. Anyone got a favourite one that they used to use?
Favourite Star Wars there.
Star Wars, yeah. Anyone? I had a horror one. Because I like that sort of stuff. And my nephew's got football ones, but anyway, so this is sort of based on that. And it's called Ideas for Improvements. So what I'm going to give you is, we have some scenarios or situations that you may have at your school relating to the climate and mainly outdoors in your school setting. So we're going to pass those around. I want you to pick. Yeah, I can't remember. A couple. Per table. I'd like you to pick one as a group, or you can separate it into a couple. That you think you did. Yes. Yeah. That fits with your school, your setting. We all got some. Yeah. Perfect. And then, what I have is my, I was going to say not as exciting as my horror or Star Wars ones. I shouldn't say that. Different solutions or different ideas to those problems or situations you have on your table that you may not have at your school. So, as the top trumps, it has scores. So, you've got well-being, wildlife, climate, fun, so important, effort, impact, and cost. So, for picking one of those situations that you think is relatable to your setting, have a look at these cards, pick which one you think is doable with all those and is the best option. So, I'll give you about 5 minutes, 10 minutes on this, and I would love you to feed back to everyone to say what you've got, what situation, scenario you've picked, and which one of these you have chosen. Is that clear? Is that okay? Yes. Very much an invitation to take part. I like using the word invitation because it sounds like you're going to a party or something, so I like that. So, a set of these each. Please talk, discuss. Yeah, that would be good. That would be good.
Do you think you chaps would be able to
we have the cards. So what we'll do is we're going to share
Yeah, that's
outside
yeah.
contracts to just maintenance and all that sort of stuff. So it's about
Types of service, that's
yeah,
yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
yes.
And would help with maybe drainage.
Yeah,
Put that in the
in
middle.
terms of that
Yeah.
adaptation, any downstream should be flexible. Well, it's going away. And also, if you've got flood, it will be originally flooded. It's not just managed to be drained. But if you're using that water, then you've got that water to use for plants. So that can be actually a challenge. During the summer,
That might
if
be,
you plants for growing with children, they come back.
that might be
Maybe
very
plants
good
can be
actually.
sprayed, some
Yeah,
plants,
we'll do
or the
the
caretaker will
then
establish
if you're building your wildlife department.
So it's been with
Double check the seals as well, so that would be well, we'll see dry.
it just shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a rainwater planting. We would suggest that is. You can get rid of background or no what you do, but then that you put up for the one.
Yeah.
What was the road?
Yeah.
Somewhat like it's 7 grand and you do.
Great self-water installation. Is that yeah.
So pick one how we do it? What have you chosen as your situation? Have you chosen? A lot of pressure. Oh no, that's cool. That's cool. Your mind's probably work a lot faster than mine, so you can probably do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hedges are race.
Pollution, noise reduction.
Exactly. Carbon as well, so carbon in the soil, carbon in the actual day. So hedges are race. And even if some schools that I spoke to before, you've got a hedge up for security, well then it's still ticking that box in terms of biodiversity, so that's perfect. And exactly, you can get loads of free, more than trust giving away every year. The thing is then management, so if you've got a grounds maintenance company that comes in and cuts your football pitches or whatever, usually the webs that have 70 to 90. You can't see that, they don't do that. So that's the challenge as well. You can put guards on, but that's why ideally it would be a whole school, whole setting approach. Everyone's got that awareness, so if something did come along, it's yourself that deals with the contractors, then you can tell them. But if not everyone's aware, so it is very, that can take time, I'm aware of that as well. And it needs to be realistic, I say to the two tables, that we want whatever you do put in for your climate action plan, whatever your starting point is cool, but if you're totally new to it, it needs to be realistic, something you can do in small steps as well. And then involvement with everyone, yourselves, the SLT head teachers, students, parents, ideally in the local community, which I know is a challenge as well. But this is a good way to think about it and see the solutions and the cost and all that sort of stuff. Perfect.
And then that, yeah. Which would would you start with that or would you end with that?
How are we doing?
Well, we got some repetitions.
Yes. We've got a lot of these and we share them and then we put them back. We hate using laminators, so you don't want to do it so much.
No, it's fine because we were like, okay, what are we missing?
No, it wasn't a trick. It wasn't a trick. It might be there more important, who knows.
No.
Hedges are race though, as generally. Cheap, go for free, tick virtually every box in terms of wildlife safety. So if you put in a hedge, it's in those boxes. Sequence, it's a bit of carbon in terms of the soil and the actual thing. Air pollution, again, free, all this sort of
Our schools will always get free trees.
yeah, exactly.
Especially going for what trees that are in the best condition is that we take one to obviously take one to replace the two.
Yes, and the challenge can be sometimes is depends on the ground maintenance, a lot of free trees. Someone's new to you're expecting the tree, but usually 60 to 90. So if the ground maintenance aren't aware of it, for hedges race, the other one that's really good in terms of that is cost effective in terms of stock putting. May look a bit messy, but it's really good. Saving money. Getting everything involved in the wear on it. Ponds are race as well, but I know there's a cost implication. There's loads of ponds and loads of schools that have got fences around. There's no habitat next to it. In terms of nature, we've had a lot of queries about ponds and lots of
We've got that schools.
and it makes sense.
Make it part of a borough school, so it's not. It's a space that will always be.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. But I am aware that some teachers don't know.
They won't have flavour.
They did, didn't they? And now it's actually coming back in.
I think the risk appetite in schools is growing a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good because it's about the young people.
Not really wild,
But there is also, you don't necessarily need to be a main provider, you can start small, but that's just like a little
Yeah.
You could do it and almost like,
You don't need an Olympics on school.
No, it is. It's a really good example of the Green Wall County in Manchester. Really good example on the website. But it is part of the process to find out how things work. So they can plant it all down to self-racing. And that's not great. But it's a learning process there. Similar with those small plants. They're better than nouts. But it's seeing how it works and a lot of how it depends where you place it. And there's an assumption sometimes they need to bring stuff in, which is ideal, because you're going to bring disease and this and that. So it's very much about a learning process as well. It's really skills for the adults as well as the children. There's a lot of adults. Yeah. That's good. I'm not a fan of those books personally, but
It's terrifying.
yeah, well that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
But very like
That's good. That's the magic thing. You've got somebody who's really passionate about it because they're going to push it, they're going to push it, and then it's getting everyone, whatever the motivation is the right motivation. And I say for me, it's quite realistic about that, but whatever the motivation for yourself, it's about what you say. Even if you're told to do it, we're all the projects along the journey, wherever that journey is. I'll give you another few minutes.
River Series has interest in predominantly. Yeah. So use the trust process. Got a cut in the south.
so you're too far north from the car.
Yes.
Well, not affected. Sorry, I tagged you in a photo, sorry.
That's all right. No, it's fine.
And I probably should have asked you for it, I just didn't
It's
know.
fine. No, it's cool. It's cool. I always remember that. It reminds me how white my hair is when I see
You get to see that.
the other times when I'm in couples who've got black hair. That was fine. One more minute, and then if we can choose one. You don't have to choose one solution or a couple, and then if we can share, that would be great.
What are you going to choose?
I'm going to find trust. It's much more. Yeah, it's not like change, so tends to go on.
Easy to do.
And once they also it's got that impact as well. So you can talk about it.
Meant to be like the definitely for trust as well. There's no one else who's picking her up.
Yeah, then it's just thinking, oh, yeah, actually.
To the other bits, yeah.
So, are we ready? So what I've done, I've put the slide up about the climate action plans and the 4 pillars. When you feed back to everyone, I'd like you to tell us what your scenario situation is, which 1 or 2, however many solutions or ideas you've come up with, and the reasoning behind that, and also which one of these pillars that it fits into. So this could be, if you haven't started your climate action plan, your settings yet, this could be the start of it. Bear in mind, it doesn't have to fit in one, it can fit in all of them. Some of them, we were talking about hedges are ace, I reckon it'll tick every box there, a hedge. Who wants to start? Top right, we'll go with top right then, because you're looking at me. So your situation, thank you.
Our outdoor spaces are very green, without much green space to relax in. The reason we chose that is that we can do something on most of those areas, but also address an unattractive area in the school that makes it nicer for attracting pupils, attracting staff and retaining them.
Perfect.
But also dealing with an area that doesn't give much else.
Perfect, yeah.
So that's why I've chosen that.
That's cool.
Where do you start with what we can do? Almost every card we've got, you could do something in a grey area.
Cool.
The hedges around the edge will give it a shade. Trees in the middle would also give it a shade. Putting some outdoor seating in there would allow a place to sit. You could just work your way through all the cards.
Yeah, I think it's getting maybe some quick wins, but I think that your thoughts around the green spaces and the attractiveness as well as fitting in with this is perfect, because it does. It's not just this, it's also this with your college well-being, how it looks to parents and the like, so that's perfect. Thank you.
Our scenario is there are always puddles on our site and there's no open water to drain to. This means the ground can flood after heavy rainfall and stops it being accessible. So what we thought we would do is put rain gardens on the downpipes so you can catch the rainwater and stop it going into the surface water drains and through to the fields or the sea or whatever.
Perfect. Again, there's a lot of rain in this country. I know we know that, but we all have it at certain times now, and that's where we can have flooding. So if we've got a system in place and it's using it, and then you can use that water if you are in a growing area or whatever. And again, I was saying to a couple of tables, it's about learning things, so linking it to the curriculum. There's a lot in there in terms of science, measuring, and so there's huge opportunities. That's perfect. Thank you.
We go for all.
Come on, right answer.
But what we picked is we don't see much wildlife around our site. There's also lots of noise and air pollution from the busy roads when we're outside, which stops us from being able to relax and play. So the first one I went for was hedges, because they're pretty easy to do. Probably need to adapt from all of them really.
Yeah,
it's cheap to do as well.
Yeah.
Or potentially free.
Exactly. Hedges are raised. If you're not aware, you get free hedging plans from the Women Trust. Be aware they're only little, so 60 to 90, so there is a challenge in that. But I think it ticks all on. Good for keeping in carbon, biodiversity is good for habitat, green careers, you get young people involved, decarbonisation in terms of that carbon. Hedges are raised. And even if the motivation for putting them in is for safety or to screen something off, you're still ticking those boxes, so you're doing some good stuff. So it doesn't have to be that motivation. If you need to get sign-off or someone else to get involved, there can be other motivations to do as well. Perfect, thank you. And the final table?
So we don't have much wildlife around our site. There's lots of noise and air pollution from busy roads when we're outside, which stops us from being able to relax and play. So we went for a couple, so around doing community research and awareness campaign, then that would potentially lead to grasslands and wildflowers, which would tick a lot of the boxes. So we also have hedges, but that's already been taken. So with the wildflowers, is that add some colour, also cuts over emissions, so it's not going to need to be tended in the same way that grass would need to be, and again encourages wildlife, bees, etc.
Perfect. Yeah, pollinators are really important, so they need those flowers. So there was a report, State of the Nation 2023. 90% of UK species have declined since the 1970s, and 80% 18% of pollinators have declined in that time. We need pollinators so we can eat cereals and all. So wildflowers are really important. Thank you. That is ace. That's fantastic. Thank you for taking part in that, because I know it might be slightly different than what you do day to day. Finally, these are the contacts. So I know someone will share these with you afterwards. SSE at the top, remember that's the web-based one, good one-stop shop. Climate Ambassadors is about, through STEM learning platforms, professional, environmental people to come and support your setting. Need a little bit of a time in that 6 weeks to go through the process of the STEM learning platform. That's the Nature Park. There is some cards on the table. They'll point you in the right direction, or I can give you my email details. What I didn't mention is there is a grant scheme attached to the Nature Park. The criteria is decided by DfE. There are 1,008 settings eligible across the country. It opened in September and is closed on the 11th of February. It might close earlier. If you are an eligible setting, again, I can send you that list. It's up to £5,000. You have to do a biodiversity enhancement, but also within that £5,000, you can buy a kit. So it could be wet weather gear for your students, it can be iPads, it can be weather stations, stuff like that. So you've got that continual involvement in your settings. We've also got a funding page on that. That is regional if you're not a grant setting. And the final one, Let's Go Zero, on there. So please do get in contact with all the sister projects. They will all help you, support you, point in the right direction, a bit delivered with that, and it is all free. So please do. Has anyone got any questions? I'm aware I'm probably bang on there. Almost bang on. Get that? I'm impressed by myself. Couldn't tell very often. Has anyone got any questions? The cards are on there. I am hanging around for a little bit. If anyone wants to come and ask me a question rather than in front of everyone else, that's cool. Appreciate your time and coming, because that's a really good thing to me. It makes me chuffed that people care and want to do something about it as well. So thank you.
I think we're now back in the main room.
I'll borrow it off the college, which is I don't know if it's all right, so I won't give them back the way you get them.
Oh, okay.
So no.